Hey everybody, Greg Denning. I've got some really important questions, and I'm going to tell you some crazy stories in just a second. Parenting is so important, and it's so fun and so exciting. And so for those of you who have children already, this is a huge question and a very important principle. For those of you who don't have children yet but are going to, the time to start thinking about these things is long before you have kids, so you can start preparing. But I want to bring up this really important question, this idea to get you thinking. What will your children do once they move out? Once they get out on their own, what are they going to be like? What are they going to do? Right? And that's the big question. Because if they're only acting in a certain way because you're there watching them, a lot of youth or young adults, when they get out on their own, when they're away from their parents, they go berserk, they go AWOL. Because a lot of parents live like dictators or micromanagers. Right? And they keep this tight hold, and as soon as their child is away from the parent, they go crazy. And let me illustrate this. Recently, we celebrated a holiday with some other friends, and we got together, and the parents were talking, having a good time, the kids were off running and playing, and they just had a great time. And we're driving home, had a long drive home away from the gathering, and we asked our kids, hey, what was it like? And they're like, well, and we have a really close relationship, a very open communication with our children. We said, what'd you do? And they said, well, when we were away from the parents, the other children used horrible language, and they treated each other terribly, and were just saying filthy things. Just talked about trash and garbage, and these were good families. And they said, yeah, when we were around the parents, when there was any adult nearby, they were very well behaved. As soon as the parents went away, they just let out their worst. And it was a great lesson for us and a great lesson for our children. And we said, hey, well, what are you going to be? Are you going to act a certain way just because there's an adult there, or just because your parents are watching? Or are you going to decide what kind of person you want to be? And that's the lesson I want. I'm going to tell you some of their stories in a minute here. But that's the lesson I want to really illustrate. We have to teach our children self-government. Right? We have to teach them personal leadership, how to lead themselves, how to make decisions not on, what my parents tell me to do or what the authority figures say I should do, but what kind of person do I really want to be? And a great leader said, teach them correct principles and let them govern themselves. And as we start to give our children freedom to choose, teaching them those correct principles early on, really early on, they start making choices based on who they want to be and how they want to live and how they want to feel instead of, well, is anyone watching, or am I going to get in trouble if I do this? Instead of, hey, that's not who I want to be. I remember vividly, well, you guys know part of my story. I was out on my own at an early age. Grew up in a broken home, out on my own. I had total freedom. I was living in a terrible place, surrounded by people doing every crime and sin imaginable, and I had total freedom. I had no curfew, I had no one telling me what to do. I could do whatever I wanted to do. And with that freedom comes great responsibility. And I realized, fortunately, very young, I'm like, hey, wait a minute. Every decision I make has a consequence attached to it. And I started thinking about the person I wanted to become. And that led me away from all those poor decisions. And to build a life now that we love. I feel so blessed. But I had to learn early on to govern myself. I remember getting to the university. And for a lot of the students at the university, it was their first time away from home. And man, they just went crazy, just binging on everything. From junk food to TV to video games to horrible behavior to just terrible parties and raves and just this constant state of drunkenness, and they would try drugs or immorality and sex. I mean, a lot of them just went crazy. They had no boundaries now, and they just let off all their own boundaries. And I realized and learned that they hadn't set up standards for themselves. For me, going to college was no different. I'd been on my own. I'd been making my own decision. I'd been exercising personal leadership and self-discipline and self-mastery. So I really want you to take some time to think about this. In fact, I strongly encourage you, right when this video is done, spend some time writing. What do you want your children to do when they're out of your presence, and maybe at the time when they leave your home? And how are you going to teach them to govern themselves? And that's why it's so critical, so crucial for you and I to be parent mentors. You see, that's mentoring. When we teach them to govern themselves, to make the right decisions based on their own values and their own rules, we help set up an internal compass that guides their actions and decisions on their own. That's mentoring. Instead of managing, you'll do this because I say so, and in my house these are the rules, and that's just because I'm telling you, right? Don't do that. Don't be that kind of parent. Be the kind of parent that leads them along, that teaches them values and principles that they then want to embrace in themselves. So even as teenagers, even as youth, they're making the right decision because it's the right decision, not because they're afraid of getting in trouble. If your children are afraid to talk to you or afraid to tell you the truth, who's made them afraid to do that? Right? Develop that relationship with them, and that guiding influence where they become their own governors, and they're the mentee and you're the parent mentor, as you guide them to help them see their own vision, help them see the path of their own decisions, help them, as you give them a little bit of freedom, and more freedom as they earn it and deserve it, help them see that where it's going to take them, and that's what kind of person they want to become. Most importantly, in this role as a parent mentor, teach your children how to learn. Teach your children how to think. Teach them how to find answers. And the best way to do that, of course, and always, is by setting that example. Be a learner. Be a thinker. Find answers with them. Ask hard questions and help them wrestle through that and start catching a vision for themselves of who they want to become and what kind of parents they want to be once they get to that stage. Okay? Man, such an important and exciting topic. I hope you'll spend time thinking and writing about this. Be sure to visit gregdenning.com. Put in your name and email there for those lists about family, about education, about mentoring, and I'll help you. I've been mentoring for years, man, 15, 16 years. I've been mentoring and helping youth and adults, and it's one of the most fulfilling and exciting things in my life. It's my purpose, it's my passion, it's my mission in life, as a mentor, to help others reach their full potential. And I want to help you be a better parent mentor, or mentor you, or mentor your youth, to lead you along on that path, and I'll help you do that. So make sure you get in there. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, go ahead and do that so you get the follow-up videos and reach upward as a parent mentor.